everybody, and welcome for another Soulful Conversation. And on this panel, I am joined with three wonderful ladies that all walk the path of intuition. And everybody on this panel is all about awakening. It's all about living the best life. And I'm going to let them introduce themselves, but I actually would like to go, before we all introduce each other, I would like to go through something that I lived yesterday. I was listening to a podcast, and then I was hearing this person talking about all wonderful things, new earth, frequencies, vibrations, like everything to be all in your heart and living the best life ever. And then she goes, but we should all fear. I was like, what? What do you mean we should all fear? We should all like rise, we should all live the best of all of who we are. And then I thought, well, this is what some people are doing. They are talking to us so that we stay in fear. But today, my friends, you are not to stay in fear. You are to step into your intuition and be awakened by the three speakers that are here on this panel today. And I'm going to start with Chelsea, if you would like to introduce who you are and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Chelsea. I'm from Edmonton, Alberta. It's quite a cold day today. And I do the Akashic Records. So I've been a practitioner for 3 years now, facilitating different workshops, one-on-one sessions, and creating programs within this modality. And a little bit personally about me, I'm just somebody who really enjoys seeing the beauty in the world with this childlike awe and wonder and just taking it all in with how grateful for what we have around us. And yeah, so that's a little bit about me. I don't think I really need to say too much about that because I know with my talk there'll be more about that.
Beautiful. And Akashic Records are a wonderful library to step in. How about you, Alicia?
Hi. So I'm Alicia Farcelli. I am your inner child coach. I take you from where you want to be. We go back deep and dive into the inner child, start to heal that. We don't spend a whole lot of time in the past like a clinical way. We go in a spiritual way. We do this through meditation and breath work. So I'm a meditation teacher, and I do energy healing, intuitive energy healing with my clients. So that's pretty much what I do. I'm based out of Tampa, Florida, but I work with clients all over the world.
Welcome to the internet, right?
Yes.
How about you, Gabby?
Hi, everyone. My name is Gabby Morales. I'm a psychic healer. I love connecting people to their souls. And that looks really different for each person. So it can look like shamanic healing. It could look like going into past lives. It can look like ancestral healing, inner child healing, like Alicia, looking into the shadows. It's everything that is in the way of fully connecting to the soul and letting that soul lead and guide. And the reason I love doing this is because since I was a little girl, I've had this like, let's change the world kind of attitude, and I have found that it really does begin with the individual. And while changing certain systems is good and appropriate and is helpful, is not going to the root cause. And by really changing the way that we show up or that we see our lives and that we engage with ourselves as souls in a human body and as each other in that way, that is really what's going to cause that long lasting change in the world.
Yeah, for sure. So if you're not convinced yet, we heard it, the Akashic Records, working with your inner child and working with your soul is not scary. It's fun and it gets to be so empowering. And this is what I want to highlight today. If you're listening today, you're starting a business, you are growing your business, you're starting into a new project, a new endeavor, and you're like, oh, I should be scared because I hear all these people saying, you have to do this, you have to do that. You don't have to do anything. Just sit with yourself. Look at how you're living. Look at the life that you have and the life that you want to have. And then reach out to people that can help you get there in the most empowered ways. So anybody that you hear talking today and like, oh yeah, I really like the way she talks, you have the handles right in the corner. And I'm going to start with asking a question for Alicia. Alicia, you talk about the role of intuition in overcoming limiting beliefs. Can you share some practical steps for tapping into our intuitive power to manifest our true desires, especially when faced with self-doubt?
Yeah, great question. So a lot of people say they don't have any intuitive powers, and I'm going to call that out and say every single one of us have some intuitive powers within inside of us. We just have to tap and awaken those up. So to awaken those, it's not a, one overnight process. I think you have to take little baby steps with it. Start to really question your intuition, and know what it feels like. To me, intuition is felt in my body. So I know what it feels intuitively. It's not, again, fear-based. So your intuition is not going to make you feel fear-based. It can be a cautionary guidance you feel inside. Nothing that's ever going to feel like you're just anxiety and fear-based. So I always tell my clients and tell people to start with something small, like as what does your body feel like it wants to eat? Do you want to, you feel like you want, and I'm not talking sugar, like we all have cravings that are unhealthy, unless you have really low blood sugar. I'm talking, is your body, like if you're craving apples or sometimes you're craving carbs, you need to eat carbs. Look into those small things and start testing your body with that. Start testing like something simple as opening up your closet and saying, what do I feel like wearing today? And just immediately going with what you want to wear. So start testing those things, and you can start testing your intuition with decisions you make. Go through different ways that am I going to go right or left on this road? What do you intuitively feel? So it's really, to me, it's gathering and starting to learn to trust yourself and trust your intuition. Is really the first basic steps that I tell people. And then once you start to know that, you can start tapping in. I talk to my like my spirit guides and all stuff every single day, and they intuitively give me messages. So those are things that you can eventually, when you start to develop this intuition and start to develop your third eye chakra, all the things, and start tapping into that, you're going to see like your life starting to change and go into different ways.
I'm going to follow up with another question here. A lot of the clients that come and work with me in my collective, they always say, how do I know that I've tapped into my inner knowing? So is there like a feeling that gets to that, or?
It's a feeling of, you just know. And so we all through our lives, from the time we're born, we have these feelings that we just know, but we block them out. We put logic, we start putting our left brain onto it. How does you're feeling in your body? Is it feeling like a good feeling, or like an energy, like I have to do something, I have to do this? That's a feeling of intuition. Again, if it goes back and you're feeling, having to logically break it down and make it make sense, a lot of times our intuition doesn't make sense, and that's why it's called our intuition. So if it makes a lot, we have to logically put it together and make it make sense. Sometimes that's not our intuition speaking. And so it goes back to the way you feel it in your body, and just it starts with those little baby steps of like starting to develop that intuition and starting to trust yourself. That's why people don't have their intuitive gifts, because they don't trust themselves. I'd say they don't have them awaken because they don't trust themselves. They don't trust that they have these. They're still in their logical brain and still trying to logically think through things, instead of just really saying, well, what do I feel? How do I feel about this relationship? I mean, when somebody walks through the door, how do you feel about them? I mean, that's a big, how does the energy feel about them? People walk in the door and you're like, oh, wow. And they just blow you away. Intuitively, they're telling you that's their energy's good. As a verse, somebody can walk in through the door and you feel really bad intuition or really bad feelings. That's your intuition. And it can keep you from doing things, but it also can keep you out of trouble sometimes too. So there's just so many different ways to develop that. But again, it goes back to those baby steps of starting to learn to trust yourself.
Yeah, baby steps. Be patient with ourselves, right? Yeah. So I'm going to go to Gabby, because it leads into what Gabby does with the soul. You guide people to connect with their divine essence, which is basically what we're talking about here, to live a soul-led life. What are some initial steps or practices you recommend for those who feel disconnected from their higher self?
I would like to make a distinction between the higher self and the soul, at least the way that it appears to me. Because when I see it, we all have the souls, and then our souls, and then our higher self is made up of other souls that are connected to us. So the higher self is a little bit different than what we're talking about here, but that's just how it appears to me when I look into it. But how we can connect to it, how we can start connecting to it, is to make space and room for it. Because I find that a lot of times people will say, well, my soul is telling me to do this, but it's actually coming from their emotions, their trauma, their thoughts. And when we're so busy and have a lot going on and are constantly being bombarded by information, whether that's from other people or the media or whatever, it's really hard to tap in, because the voice of the soul is very subtle. And most of the time, it's not going to come in the way that we are used to hearing each other, hearing our own thoughts. And it's a voice that even when it's telling you, even when it's giving you a warning, and it still comes in very calm and very zen. And we need to make time and create space in our lives to hear that. And I find that that's really hard for people, to just sit with themselves and without doing anything, even without attempting to meditate, because that is also doing something, but just to sit with yourself and observe your thoughts, observe the sensations in your body, observe your emotions and what's coming up. That is the very basic step. I mean, there's other little baby steps that are related to that, but if you're having a hard time even doing that, then I would start with building the capacity to just be with yourself.
So I'm going to ask a second question, of course. So if someone feels that they're disconnected from their soul, from that voice, how would they know that they're realigning to that voice that is guiding them towards their soul's purpose?
Similar to what Alicia was saying, it does take practice, and it is a trial and error. So you can see, so one of the things that I tell people is don't listen to it. Absolutely don't listen to it. Ignore it and see what happens. And then you can start taking note of like, oh, what I ignored was actually right. But the sensation of the soul, like the vibration of your soul, is going to feel very calm, very at ease, very warm. It's not even when you feel the urge coming in to do something, it is very easy. And it's our human sensibilities that complicate things. And so sometimes the soul can be so simple that we want to bulldoze and ignore it. But it's a very calm, easeful feeling. Even in the face of something huge that you're about to do, the sensation of the soul, or the way that the soul is communicating to you that you're on the right track, is, okay, we got this. Even if you're human at the same time is going, what the, there's still this sensation of, we got this, it's okay. I don't know how it's all going to unfold, but just take that step. It's very, does that make sense? It's very calm.
It does to me.
Yeah.
Thank you for this clarification. Now I'm going to move on to Chelsea, because right here we're really working on to the inner work. And Chelsea, tell me if I'm wrong, but you also work with energetic ties and shadow work, right?
So that's worked within the Akashic Records. And a lot of people don't actually know what the Akashic Records is. It's actually a lot of what Alicia and Gabby do. When we're in this space of the Akashic Records, I call it the space in between, because there's no space that's not filled. When we're accessing our intuition, when we're getting different downloads, when we're doing any kind of spiritual modality, it's accessing this space with just a certain intent and a different way of accessing it. So me personally, I work within it to help people find their greatest human potential. And that does include past lifetimes, cutting energetic ties, maybe doing some shadow work inside of there, whoever is coming towards me with an experience or something they want to work through, and I just kind of am guided through that experience within the Akashic Records of what needs to be done in that moment. So yes, it does include both of those things.
So if the people are working with their guides, so you're going to the Akashic Record, like just for the easiness of this exercise, let's say the Akashic Record, to me, it looks like a library, right? So let's say you're working in the library with your client. What would be the most common blocks that would prevent people from reaching their full potential?
Yeah, so the ones that I commonly find, first is control, expectations, which get tied into control quite a bit, a lack of self-acceptance, and a lack of self-love. So those are the main blockages that I find in energetic ties that can be tied to these other lifetimes or these other people or even a place or a job, whatever that is within that experience. Yeah.
And is there, like, I know there's no quick ways. Everybody said it today, it takes time. We need to take the time to heal or to walk with. I like to say we walk with, whatever we're dealing with. But what would be maybe one trick so that people can begin to heal and integrate through their journey, that not integrate the block, but integrate what they're getting from the Akashic Record?
Yeah, for sure. So the one thing that I first want to touch base on is something called spiritual bypassing. Because I feel like understanding what that is first and acknowledging that, then we can kind of shift to start making those different choices. So basically, spiritual bypassing, it is using different tools or practices, concepts to escape or avoid, deny doing any kind of work. And trying to find also the silver lining without actually going through that process of grieving, of sadness, whatever it is coming our way. Because a lot of times we skip that step and go like, oh, this is the lesson, or this is the silver lining of it. It's like, well, we got to feel first. We got to go through that first. So first, when it comes to these different steps, it's becoming aware of it. Especially with shadow work, it's becoming aware of your triggers. It's becoming aware of yeah, actually, you know what? I think that's just it. Like it is your triggers, your habits, your behaviors, compulsive behaviors that are happening in your life. And once you become aware, then you can kind of accept it within yourself. I saw this one photo on social media. It was actually quite interesting. It kind of had like a hierarchy of vibrations. So some emotions were down here. I was like, oh, like sadness and anger and all this stuff, and the high vibrations of like joy and peace and love, which sure, yes. And what the other photo showed was here we are, and then all our emotions are kind of just like all over the place, because it's part of our human experience. So it's almost like we have to accept them and become aware of them, so that, okay, yes, we have these higher vibrational emotions, but we need to accept all the other emotions first, and move into that. So becoming aware of it, seeing what the trigger is, accepting what that is, and then just like having that full feeling of wholeness and completeness. And then we can make that new choice. So moving away from those shadow choices and moving into the choices that best serve us. And both what Alicia and Gabby said of like, okay, notice like maybe, oh, I remember like I was like raising my hand and I noticed on Zoom I was going to raise my hand. What Gabby was saying, like, oh, just don't listen. Just don't listen and see what happens within your life. And then you can kind of see like, oh, those are the choices that best serve me. Now I can start to understand what choices those are and keep moving forward.
Yeah, and what I hear from the three of you today, it is an inner knowing that feels just, it makes sense to your body, but it might not make sense to your head. Yeah. Your head is going to try to make a sequence of that making sense. And so one of my mentors used to say, when the thought keeps on coming back, it needs to be addressed. If it just comes and go, like Gabby said, don't think about it, see where that goes. So before we leave, well, we're not done yet, right? But before we leave, I would like you guys to if you want to give an action step or a golden nugget that you feel that is a powerful action step to the audience, the people that are listening today maybe are starting their businesses, maybe they are in the, growing their businesses, launching new products, they maybe have a new huge challenge in their lives, and they really want to step into that inner knowing. They want to hear the subtle voice of their intuition to be able to guide their life or their new steps in an aligned and balanced way. So we're going to start with you, Alicia. If you could give an action step or a golden nugget, whatever you feel like.
Yeah. So I've gone through had multiple businesses, and the one time that didn't work was because, first of all, I wasn't trusting my intuition. So that's the biggest step I would say, to start to develop the intuition, but also to figure out where you want to be and why, if you believe you can even get there. So if you want to make $100 million and you don't believe that you can make $5,000, go back to that. And we'll start back into kind of doing, like you said, the inner child work and some shadow work behind it. Figure out, where is that belief system coming from? And so I really think before you start doing anything, you need to start addressing these limiting beliefs and knowing where they come from. And looking at it, is it still true? Is it right? I mean, I'm saying 99% of the time it's not going to be true, but you're never going to get to the next step until you start addressing the first step. So we want to go from 0 to 100. And it's like the emotional scale too. We want to be, fear, and all of a sudden we want to be joy. You have to go through those scales. You have to go through the steps to heal those limiting beliefs that you have. Because if you don't believe you're going to make $5,000, you're never going to make 500,000 million, whatever that end goal is with your business. So start really working on that, and then let your intuition kind of guide you through the next step.
Thank you so much for this action step. How about you, Gabby?
Would say, and will always say, to prioritize your relationship with yourself. You make yourself your own best friend. And in that, I mean, it's easier said than done. Yeah. Because in that, there's a lot of steps. But when you can start really looking at the way that you think about yourself, the way that you engage with yourself, the way that you feel about yourself, all of that shows you how the world and the people around you are going to follow suit. Because whether we acknowledge it or not, or are conscious about it or not, we are the leaders in our life. We do set the tone energetically for how everything plays out in our lives. And just a caveat, I'm not saying that we won't experience certain fated things, because we have things that we are beyond our control, but it's how it affects us, how we engage with those situations, and situations that that determine how, like, the real impact that they're going to have in our lives, if that makes sense. And all of that stems from that relationship that you have with yourself.
Yeah, it's definitely a good place to start. How about you, Chelsea?
Yeah, I want to say a couple different things. The first one is, because we're talking a lot about intuition and kind of seeing the signs that are around us. I want to touch on the different ways that we receive information, just so people know, like, going out in the world, like, how do I see these things? Yes, through our body, but also some people are more visual, some people hear more. Yeah, so the body is the feeling, by the way. Some people actually taste or touch and all these things. So all of these ways we can open ourselves up to receiving this kind of information, and just really being present in the moment. And that's one of the most important things, is being present in this moment, is how we become aware to what our intuition and these downloads and these messages that we are receiving. And it's really like, once we get into that space, like, that's where creative flow comes from. Like, when we get into that space, like, creative flow is like our connection to the divine. So it's really cool to see, like, different people tap into that and what they can create in this lifetime. And as well, just like having just a lot of forgiveness for ourselves going through this journey. And if we don't make that choice that's the best serving for us, it's going to be okay. It's just we are here to experience life. That's really all like what we're here to do is once we experience life, then we can evolve on this beautiful soul level, and not to beat ourselves up, because the first step is really about forgiving ourselves through that, because it's really hard to move forward and reach our potential if we don't have that forgiveness for our choices and our experiences.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you so much. And before I go to the next question, I kind of want to go back to the three main things that you guys said. So Alicia, you said, for everybody here listening, I think for me, these are not the only nuggets because there's so many of them, but the key one. Everybody has intuitive powers. You just need to tap into it. And this is so powerful. You need to believe and to actually know that you have them, and then step in and feel them. And then Gabby, you said the voice of the soul is very subtle. It's calm, it's zen, and we need to make time for it. Making time for it can look for everybody a different way. But if you keep on, and I'm going to say something that is not an absolute for everybody, but if you keep on listening to the TV, to the radio, does somebody still listen to the radio? I have no idea. Read like the headlines and social media and listen to gossips and stuff like that, your intuition is still going to be there. Your soul's still there. It doesn't leave, but it's going to take a little corner and it's going to wait for you to be open. So sitting with it is basically what Gabby is saying. That is super important. And then Chelsea, your steps are amazing. I love them. Become aware, step into acceptance, and then feel. After you've done that, everything else happens. In my world, in divine timing, everything else happens. But you do have to feel. If you think that you can just look at it and say, oh yeah, I read that in the book, so I'm going to rationalize this and this is the steps I have to do, it's not going to work. You actually have to step into it and feel it. I really love what you guys said today, because it really brings back to, again, when you're starting a business or you're growing your business or you're walking through life and you're like, oh, nothing is working. Well, sit with what you're thinking of nothing is working. Just sit down and go quiet and then observe what's not working. And like Alicia said, most of the time it's not going to be true. And Gabby said, if you sit with it, you're actually going to start hearing. And then Chelsea said, and you're also going to be able to feel it and know and receive the right answers. So thank you again for all your messages. And my last question is going to be very easy for you. I want the audience to know who can go and work with you. So if you are ... you can reach me to do whatever you want to talk about. And we're going to start with Alicia. Perfect. Thank you. Gabby, how about you?
If you want a big life, and what I mean by big life, I don't necessarily mean like yachts and luxury. I mean to feel like you love your life, regardless of what you have experienced, regardless of where you have come from, because I work with trauma and from the whole spectrum of it. I am your person. I can help you really unwind anything that's in your way and live the life that you love. Like, you want to wake up and be like, yes, I get to do this today. I get to, be insert your name today. And this, if you really just want to love the life that you're living, I can help you get there.
Beautiful. And again, in the corner, you have the handle, and we'll put the connection, all the handles in the show notes. Chelsea, how about you?
If you are someone who feels stuck and you feel like you're going through the same kind of cycles or patterns, beliefs, maybe you feel this tie to something or someone or a job or a location, whatever it is, and you don't quite know why, that's what I enjoy working through. And even if you just want guidance on a specific job or something personal or an experience, and you want some steps on like, okay, like what are my blind spots? What am I not paying attention to moving forward so I can shift into that timeline that better serves me? So these are the people that I work with so that we can reach that greatest human potential with a lighter foot.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, ladies, for your time, for your information, for your wisdom. Thank you for listening today. And I will see you next week for the very last episode of this season of 2024. Have a very good day.